So hello, everyone. This is March 29, 2022, and this is the bi-weekly release engineering agenda brought to you by SIG Release. My name is Adolfo Garcia, and I will be your host today. Remember that this meeting is covered by the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, which boils down to be awesome to each other. And so remember that this meeting will be recorded and will be posted on the public internet. So be mindful of anything you say and do. And with that, I think we can begin. I would like to give an opportunity to anyone that who is new to introduce themselves, which I don't think we have anybody new, but I don't have my glasses on. So probably there's a slight possibility that there may be one. Okay, so we have two topics in the agenda today. And if we have time, I would like to discuss one at the end. But before that, I would like to give an opportunity to I would like to ask for an update from the release managers and the events surrounding the release. All right. So okay, anyone would like to say some words about the upcoming beta cut or the code freeze, which is upon us as well?
Yeah, so I can just say that I know that Nabarun opened up the PR. It's currently held for code freeze, and so that's in flight. And then we have the beta scheduled for Wednesday with currently nothing blocking from CI signal, and so we're good to cut that. There's a few open issues that are blocking the release candidate cut, I believe, but they are tentatively going to be resolved with the Golang update. So no real blockers in my mind, at least from what I know.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so we were just to give an update on the signing cap that we've been doing. We still do not have the new version of the image promoter in place. So the first beta is not going to be signed. I was discussing this morning some possible workarounds to have the signatures promoted, but I don't think it's going to be possible without actually shipping the new code and putting that into to drive the image promotion. So it's going to be just as the last alpha. We're going to be signing the releases and staging, and those signatures are going to be verified before promotion, but then those signatures will not be carried over to the production registries, and we will not add the second signatures from the Kubernetes organization to the releases. But we're hopeful that to promote the promoter real soon and get that code working. Okay, so any questions about the releases or code freeze in general? Okay. All right, so let's jump to, we have some items on the agenda today. So the first one is from Arno, the great migration to registry.k8s.io.
It's a funny title. Hi, everyone. I thought it was a funny title. Okay. This is a very old subject we brought, I think, a month ago or 2 months ago, something like that. So basically, this is related to the cost burden because the Kubernetes community is the only one entity to distribute basically the Kubernetes artifact. and specifically the container images. So Ben Helder came with a design doc, I think, months ago about basically set up a new OCI proxy running inside Kubernetes infrastructure to basically be the new endpoint for container image pooling. So this is up and running since a week now. We're working on basically spread that inside the community, but because Godfrey and Testfree is coming, we will probably stop until the master branch is open, I think in 2 weeks, to ship that new endpoint inside the KK repo. But for the moment, I would like to bring back the conversation about push the image, the layers of the container images to something else than Google JCS. We had this conversation before, so I would like to restart the conversation because I think we're done with the signing part of the container images, and I hope release engineering can start the conversation about push image layers to Amazon S3 specifically.
Exactly. So the idea is that there is some part of this effort that touches release engineering. And the idea is that Kate's Infra is working on deploying the, how does it work out now? Is it a proxy? I think so, right? Or a redirector?
It's for the moment, it's just a pure redirect. We basically redirect to KGCI.io from everyone hitting registry kit.io for the moment. Now we want to basically be able to, during the release process, push the layers to Amazon and redirect the traffic from everyone coming from AWS network to this S3 bucket. So basically we write the HTTP response every time someone do a Docker pull or Crane pull to redirect to the endpoint of either a S3 bucket or a CloudFront endpoint.
Exactly. So we've been working on both ends of both stakes to meet in the middle. So on one side, Kate's Infra has been working on the redirector so that you can, when you request the image, it redirects you, like Arno said. And on our side, we've been doing improvements to the image promoter. And we are meeting now in the middle where it's time to start implementing the copying of the image blobs to the alternative registry, which is going to be AWS in a bucket, right?
Yes, that's gonna be basically during the image promotion, we need to add a new step, basically pushing, extract the image layer and push them to the NS3 bucket. Exactly,
but it's going to be more than a container pushing, just copying the blobs, right? Via S3.
In your phrase, you say just copy the blobs is not that simple because basically we still don't know if we need to do checksum during the process or because basically all those image layer have SHA signature. So we don't know if we need to do checksum of those layer or how, for example, how we make sure if a tag of a specific image is removed from the image promoters, how we make that those layer I delete inside the S3 bucket, stuff like that. So there are a few use case we need to talk about because it's just not push blobs from JCS to S3. We also need to check integrity, security aspect of that. Do we basically need to embed signature inside those image layers of stuff like that?
Yeah, well, so just to give a little bit of context, I ask of the pushes because the image promoter, as it stands right now, is so to speak, blind to any media types in container images that are not the Docker type. So any OCI types, it is blind to them. It is hard coded to ignore them. And we are leveraging this fact right now in the signature code to basically skip over those layers. And because we want to keep the promotion just as it is and handle the signatures in a different stage. So we do the promotion and the images get copied, and due to the fact that the container promoter, the image promoter doesn't see those blobs, we have separate code to move the signatures. So if we are going to, so I asked because if we were going to do the copying via I don't know, Crane or something like that, we would have to add a different set of copying code, if that makes sense. Because so the current functions that copy container blobs inside of the promoter cannot be used to copy everything, because they ignore the signatures and all of those. So we would have to basically duplicate that code, and it would be kind of messy. But if we are working with when S3 data store, it's simpler because we can get the blobs we want, ship them, and do the integrity checks separate. I don't know if that came out as clear as I wanted it to, but
yeah, I think you are referring the GH to GCS code base. Also, if I don't remember, because I remember there was a code base allowing copy to GCS.
No, the promoter has another set of copying code in it. So
okay.
But yeah,
in any case, we need to implement authentication to S3.
Mm-hmm.
First, I mean, that's the first thing we need to do. And secondly, implement copy of those image layer. Either we basically extract them before pushing them, or just go through the GC API and trying to do a copy from that.
Yeah, I would like to hear some ideas. The way I would do it, but it's probably dumb and not the best way, is that I would download the images to temporary storage and then ship them via S3, an S3 clients to somewhere. But this is just vomiting from my head. So if anyone has other ideas of moving those, would be a good time to hear them.
Just a question, has folks looked into, I know that there's workload identity federation, so you can use like AWS service accounts with Google Workload Identity. Has that been explored at all?
I don't think so.
This is one part of the problem, basically authentication cross provider. But the main issue is blobs copy, object copy, because we have a ton of object. I mean, we can solve that by a one sync from GCS to S3, and there's no built-in service to do that basically in both cloud providers. So even if we do that, we need to make sure every time I would say first, Kubernetes release, do a release, a minor one. We need to make sure the blob are copied to S3. Authentication is kind of not that complex to handle. Like you say, we can do workload identity federation between cloud provider. This still need to be discussed, but we can simply start with access case and make sure we do those copy.
Okay, yeah, but in the end, I think Jim has a good point there that we should avoid having any credentials flying around and use a federation would be much better. And so one question, I've never, can you access I mean, I don't know if anybody knows this. Can you access the GCS bucket behind the Google container registries?
it, which permission, because the bucket are public read right now. Basically, anyone can access to them. But writing, we have a service icon doing that, but I don't think it's necessary to do that. Firstly,
Okay,
so
but
we can directly read from those buckets without use GCR API. That's for sure.
okay, the bucket's powering the registry.
Yep.
Okay, so we could go that way. I think maybe because I was thinking on actually going into the registry via the OCI API and downloading those from there. But if we can do it from the bucket, I think it would be much more efficient. Okay, yeah, sounds good. Just making sure that this was set up in the notes, and it is. Okay. So one question, Arnold, is are you moving the target date of the great migration to the 125 release, or are you considering doing it early, or how's it looking?
Because of the timeline, we can ship the new endpoint for the registry inside 124. So we have to basically do that. I mean, 125 alpha need to use this new endpoint.
Okay.
In the entire community. So that's the goal. We don't necessarily need to we can, because code freeze is like tomorrow and test freeze is like next week. So I don't want to rush this. So I think the target date for basically the new registry endpoint will be 125.
Okay, and from the last thing I heard, this is going to be like a, so to say, dumb redirection, in the sense that it won't check anything, just redirect all the traffic based on the source IP that's requesting the images. So if I'm correct there, we are going to have to do a copy of everything we have in the buckets. So
that's probably directly is not the most complex part of the problem. I mean, I already did that as a lab. I mean, copy, if you have GCS utility, is a little complicated to do with it, but there are third party doing that in like an hour, copy the entire bucket from GCS to S3. That's not going to be the problem. The real problem is how we basically introduce Amazon S3 as a new target for the image process, for the image promotion process. I think that's the complexity.
Now, so if I remember correctly, you can access the GCS buckets via an S3 API. So any tool to do bucket to bucket copy should do it.
Yeah, GCS is S3 compatible, that's for sure. The real problem is now permission, because you need to have write permission to the S3 bucket. So we will provide you a nice key for the moment until Jim magically figure out how to make workload identification between cloud provider. I mean, Jim, if you're interested in that, go for it. I don't block you for doing that. But I think for the moment, let's just have access key and secret key, provide that to the image promoter and see what's happening.
So just a quick question, what is the actual thing doing the moving? Like, is it going to run in cloud build, or is it run in a Kubernetes container? I guess, like, what is the runtime environment for this move process, or is that still to be determined?
The image promoter is split between is split in two parts. One part is a post summit doing the promotion, and there is another one as a periodic pro job, checking if something missing and do the promotion. So that's where we just basically provide that. We just provide the credential for S3 as a secret to the pro job and leave the image promoter doing that. Now
and
we
part of
can
my sorry, go ahead.
go for it.
I was gonna say part of my ignorance, but if it's a prow job, it's going to be running as a job, as like a pod, basically running a Kubernetes at the end of the day. So if the prow configuration set up for workload identity or some sort of configuration is in there, it could leverage then that federated credential potentially. I'm spitballing here a little bit. We don't need to go into solutioning. I don't want to waste time, but it sounds reasonable.
No. I think the only part missing, if we want to follow your idea, is basically worker identity federation, because worker identity is already enabled in the build cluster. So that's not the issue. Now we need to be sure we have basically identity federation between Amazon and GCP. And that's the most complicated. It's not that complex, but we need to figure out something, because also the Amazon part is still not in place right now. So we still need to get that secure from the conversation we have with AWS right now. So right now, my goal is to basically open the conversation about this aspect of the image promotion process and see what we can do.
Yeah, no, but it's good that we're dumping ideas, because we have to open like an umbrella issue with all of these points there, and then assign Dream to the federation. No, yeah, the promoter is runs in a pod. Then all of this, I don't know, taught me some months back. The promoter is running in a pod with workload identity running. And yeah, I mean, I've done the opposite, like doing external services act with the permissions of Google service accounts. I'm pretty sure the opposite can be achieved as well. But the way we're going to be doing it, I suppose, depends on the exact moment we do the copying inside of the promoter, which is going to be, my guess is after signing. And but that's a good point. Authentication, then doing some tests, and we should also try to start testing this code in some end-to-end tests before we set up anything to copy to the actual buckets. So from the project, I know that you sent us, AWS, we can set up a permanent testing bucket in there.
Yeah, and I don't know if you remember, Caleb opened a pull request about that. We need to do some review. We will have a conversation again tomorrow during case of a meeting. So if you're free to come up, we can clarify that part.
Okay, yeah, sure.
The infrastructure. So for anyone in the call, if you have any question, because we basically take most of the entire of the meeting, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's
I see Sasha in the call with no question. I'm curious. Are we saying something bad?
Oh no. I'm just listening. So okay. Go ahead.
Okay. For just little warning for the release manager associate in the call. Well, there's gonna be change in the release process, because we add in an extra step during the release process. Basically, I'm not sure if this is going to be merge blocking, because we want to make sure those layers are pushed to S3 even before we basically do the promotion to the production GCR, if I want to say something. So I think that's going to be the only change. But since we have, I would say, room to figure out all the different possibility until Alpha 125, I don't want to basically scare anyone.
Yeah, so yeah, we could, I think it would be realistic to have something running for not the first alpha that we got right after the minor release, but the first one that we got. And yeah, those constraints have to be observed, like make it like release blocking, in the sense that if we haven't yet completed those copies of the blobs, we cannot consider the release done. And the second one, which I would like to add on our side, is that I don't think we should impose any more complexity to the current release process and adding more tasks to the release manager. So if we can do this fully automated, the copy and the checks, all the better. Okay, so any other questions around the conversation that it's now rolling again?
So is there any clear action item out of this other than maybe encouraging anybody who wants to know more information to attend Kate's info meeting tomorrow?
I'd say, go ahead, I don't know.
I think the first thing, the first real AI about this is make sure the email implement authentication, S3 authentication. I think that's the first clear AI item in priority now. We can basically, because that's we need to ship in your package inside the email promotion, inside the promo tools. I think the SDK AWS package need to be shipped at some point. So I think the first clear AI item is just implement authentication.
Yeah,
and we can talk about promotion later.
And to track those, I think we'll open today the umbrella issue to start collecting ideas there and split the work into more easily consumed tasks. Sounds good. All right. Okay, so that was, if there aren't any other questions. So if anyone wants to discuss the more infrastructure side of these changes, join tomorrow the Kate's info meeting, and we can carry on that part of the conversation over there. Okay, the next topic is from Jeremy, the survey.
Hey, so we had started a Google form to collect survey responses about the branch rename, but the more appropriate way to do those kind of things is via SurveyMonkey, and the CNCF has a paid account that we can use. So I submitted a request via the SIG contributor experience repo to open one of those. So I dropped a link in here so folks can follow along. I think the way that it works is Josh Burkus will create the survey and then send it out, give us a link and we can publicize it as well. And then we can collect all the data from that. So just wanted to let people know that that was in progress.
Awesome. Well, it's the request is linked in the chat, I think. Yeah. All right. Any questions around the branch rename survey?
Maybe not for this survey, but I was thinking there was a lot of discussion also around enhancements and that the Excel sheet is not so appropriate and so on, and that we want to move away from that. And maybe the survey would also be interesting to gather some feedback and to kick off like the thinking about building like a solution or something.
Yeah, I think that's a totally feasible thing to do. I don't know if we should own that or if the enhancements subproject should own that. So I think we need to discuss with those folks. They have a meeting next week, but it's on the agenda, I think, for that.
Okay. So should I put it on the agenda, or is it already on the?
I think it's on the agenda, but it could possibly not be. If it's not, go ahead.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, there was a discussion last week about possible replacements for the spreadsheet, and if I'm not mistaken, I think that carried over to Slack.
Yeah, it did.
I'm not sure if it reached anywhere.
I don't think it's one that you can get to an answer to right now. There have been a few stalled attempts to replace the spreadsheet. There's general consensus that like it sucks and that we want to get rid of it. but there's not a general consensus on what the replacement should be.
Yeah, I've some of the conversations I followed never reach anywhere, but probably maybe designing a properly thought out survey could give some pointers on a solution that people may have accept. I don't know. Let's see. Okay.
Per usual, there are more complaints than solutions.
Exactly. Or too many solutions that you cannot reach any consensus.
Yeah.
Okay. Any additional questions around the survey? It's our last topic for the day, so. Okay. Is there, oh, go ahead, Arno.
I want to bring a subject that I initiate, I think, 2 months, and it came back. I don't know how to say this. Basically, there was some kind of conversation with Google build team about moving the part of the release process from Google to the community, because inside Google is really badly set up currently, and basically the script run inside the workstation, and every time they have to go through that workstation, they don't really use I would say production ready infrastructure to do the release of the system packages. So Ben added a comment recently about this, so I will also move forward with this. But like I said last time, we need a new GPG key, and we need to inform the community about this, because this is a breaking change per se, because it's a new GPG key that everyone needs to import. So I feel like, because we may run out of time, we'll bring the conversation again maybe in next week. I just need to find the command by Ben somewhere.
Okay, yeah, this is regarding the packages, right? Because so the comment from yesterday from Ben was surrounding the project of the release process.
Yes. Yesterday, basically, there was they got a notification from Google security team about access key not being used for 6 weeks, but this is bringing back the conversation about migrating resources from Google infrastructure to community infrastructure. So basically, system packages, I would say tooling for release is still inside Google, and they would like to migrate that to us. I found the comments, so I put it in the Zoom chat. So I think it's gonna be at some point critical for us, because it may bring some kind of, so.
Yeah, so there at least those two efforts have different challenges and requirements. I feel moving the system packages require more effort on, like you said, like on coordination with the community, because keys have to be set up, rotated, and all of that to sign the system packages. And on the other side, the project that requires a lot more of interaction with Google, because we have to, if we move out the release process, we still need to access, at least for now, the buckets which are under Google control to write to them.
I'm gonna say that.
Kate's friends pushing back.
No, I mean, what's gonna happen is at some point there are gonna be basically one of the Googlers will synchronize those system packages to a new GCS bucket. That's one thing they can basically do. That's not the issue. The one thing I care about is how we say to the entire community that they need to import a new GPG key.
Exactly.
This is not I mean, doing a migration is not that complex in terms of, it's not that complex technically. The real problem is how we basically bring a breaking change in all those people using system packaging. I'm talking about cluster API and everyone having a open installer using the system packages. So this is where we need to make sure we have good impact. So that's why I say, I think maybe 2 meetings ago, I say maybe during KubeCon, we can have a signing party and basically have a new GPG ready to be distributed. And in 125, we basically migrate away from Google infrastructure to do the release of the system packages.
Yeah, I feel we have to set up a rolling plan, not to do it in one release, but gradually.
Yep.
And so I feel that at least we should deprecate the old keys in throughout the life cycle of our release. So if we start, for example, signing, so we would have to have both signatures at least living together for a while. And if we, for example, start signing in parallel 125, I think we should keep both until at least the end of the 125 life cycle. But this requires us to open a KEP and gather input from everyone, because I'm sure there's lots of things around there using those artifacts that we don't know about. And so before even attempting to do the parallel signing, I think we should open a period of gathering feedback and then moving it forward. But yeah, we can start discussing that, and let's we can start shuffling ideas here and on Kate's infra as well, and plan on opening the KEP. What do you think?
Yeah, totally. I'm sorry, I have to drop for another meeting in a few minutes, so we can talk about that on Slack of anyone. Thank you for everyone. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you. All right, so any last questions or remarks about what Arno just brought? All right, so yeah, we'll try to keep that conversation in the upcoming meetings and try to start looking for a solution. Okay, so if there's nothing else, I think we can wrap it up and give everyone like 3 minutes back. So thank you everyone for coming, and see you soon.